Sonic Talk.
Hello everybody, welcome to Sonic Talk episode 749. Today recording on Wednesday it's the 8th of March. In fact, this is the last show before we do our next big event, which is on Saturday night. For those of you who can't make it in person, keep an eye out. We're doing a live stream, 7 live acts from Bath. About 7:30 will be when the music starts. Please do come along either virtually or in person. In fact, I've got a little bit of I can press this. So this should throw the link into the there we go. Sonic Live Music 11th of March. We've got everybody confirmed. Gaz is playing, Maths is playing. We've got 5 other acts. Including Arkaton, including James Murr, including Ken Peel, and it's going to be great. Tickets are selling well. There are still a few left, so please do get in touch if you want to do that. I'll do the housekeeping now because I also want to plug our Patreon, which is also going great. And I recorded a new video, so it might not be quite as awkward as the last time I pressed this button. Have you considered joining our Patreon? I've got 2 tiers available. One for just thank you very much, but you will also get ad-free versions of all the stuff we post to YouTube, including Sonic Talk. But for the upper tier, you get some exclusive videos. In fact, we posted recently first look at the third wave polysynth, which is in for review. You don't get to see the preview here because this is the page that everybody else will see. That's a locked post, but please do check that out. We've also got sample sets, uploads. We've got exclusive extra video on the SH4D, which has proved very popular. There's a whole bunch of stuff. In fact, if you want to check out the Massiva, which is the new Somar, it's like a kind of galactic radio. Check that out as well. That's also up here. So please do join us. You also get your name in lights at the end of the Sonic Talk show. And in fact, if you join before the end of this show, your name will do that because it gets automatically the price of a cup of coffee a month, and it helps us during these difficult ad times. So thanks very much for listening. Back to the show. I really must consider using a script in future, but I always do it at the last minute and then I kind of end up, bungling it. But anyway, you get the drift. And thanks very much, everybody, for all of that who already support us. Very much appreciated. I want to say hi to everybody in the chat, and we can see all the people in the chat. I want to say a big thank you live on air in the main body of the show for Wagyu. This wasn't working 40 minutes ago and he's fixed it, which is awesome. God, it's synth punks in there as well. Crikey, I haven't seen you for a while, or ever here. Be nice, that's all I ask. And also all the people in the chat, yes, I want to say thanks. And also Wagyu is moderating, so you can keep the lonely ladies and the spammers out, which we do get from time to time, but it's something that he deals with. So thank you very much. So let's say hello to our guests. We've got first is Mr. Ty Unwin, who's there in his studio. You've actually got, it looks like you've got, is that like a space projection on the ceiling above you? That's beautiful. Is it an aurora borealis?
No, do you know what? Honestly, I've just noticed the last few weeks of my life, I've been walking around. This has been above my head constantly. It's almost like I'm some kind of second coming or something. And it's just wherever I walk, there's just this glow around me, and there's a hallelujah chorus
like
all the time. But exactly.
Is it like a bit of tech you put in the collar behind you? You put in your collar behind you.
I don't know why it's. I have no idea why it is. Everyone started to call me Jesus and everything. I know, but it's no, it's just a projector thing. Yeah, so it's just a projector thing. So, yeah. Well, nice to see you've got your 55 behind you. Nice to see you, Ty, because of Ty, of course, media composer, usually extremely busy. I think you're now in a bit of time off phase, so you could sort of exhale, I hope, and enjoy a little bit of that. That's exactly how it is. That's exactly how it is at the moment, which is great. Although what it does do, and I'm sure everyone can relate to this, is that it makes you relook the studio because the studio obviously ever changing, ever morphing, and you would just sit there when you're working going, well, I haven't got time to do it. I haven't got time to do it. And of course, now I've got time off. I just spend time going, should that go there? No, I think I'll move that here. So the whole studio has basically been not the whole thing being ripped apart, but there's a lot of it coming out and being repurposed and moved around. So there's a lot of that going on. It isn't, because, as I've said, it isn't, because because when we have a small setup, or when we're teenagers, we love doing it, and we love stripping the studio down and rebuilding it. But when you've got all this junk, and the amount I've got, and you get old, it's a pain in the... Everybody just ends up in the box eventually, just because,
they don't want to be dealing with this kind of stuff, right? That's
Yeah,
where
you talk. Have you seen it? I got to say, have you seen the two guests on today? I don't know if you've noticed, Nick. But
You've got a long way to go. I realise that. Yeah, I realise that.
Yeah, there's me, and there's
there's Mr. Yoad Nevo. Before I do that, I just want to respond. Synthpunk mentioned I look like an astronaut. Yeah, normally I wear in-ears, and there is a story to do with that, and that is because I've got blocked ears, and I went this morning to get them unblocked, where they put this kind of weird Hoover attachment in and pull out all the stuff. I won't go into it. You're supposed to put olive oil and stuff in your ears, and I used bicarbonate of soda because that's what I was told to do. And they said, no, that doesn't work. And they're right, it didn't work, so they couldn't get it out. So I'm still deaf completely in one ear, and I don't really want to put any earbuds in that ear because I don't want to do that. Anyway, just saying. Anyway, Yoad Nevo is here from Nevo Sound studios in London, in front of his massive Neve coffee table and his lovely ATC monitors with his master control, where he mixes and atmoses and develops plugins for waves. How have you been, Yoad? Are you well?
Yeah, been well, thank you. Very busy. Working on so many things. And we're planning something really big at Waves towards the end of the month, hopefully. And production, a lot of mixing, Atmos, Nexus stuff. I'm working on a new library. Yeah.
Do you never stop?
Yeah. Sometimes I feel like, like in a kind of almost like a corner shop where I just do this and then do this and then do this and then send this and then receive that, and it's like crazy. But yeah, it's good. It's good.
It's great. I mean, having that sort of juggling pace existence, I totally get that. I mean, I like to do lots of different things. I mean, like, for instance, I'm working on the EMOM stuff, the system for that. We're tweaking that. I've also been, it looks like I'm going to be going to NAMM now because our guy who normally does the editing, he can't make it over there. And so I got to go, so suddenly I've got to deal with it. But I enjoy that. But the problem is when something breaks down and takes more precedence, or something happens in your life that you've got to deal with, then it all completely falls to pieces. That's the only problem. But I'm sure you're very much together, more together than I am when it comes to that.
I'm trying.
Yes. Okay. Well, we've got stuff to talk about. I mean, there's not a whole bunch of new synths. I mean, before I do that, I will mention we do have the Trigon 6 coming up for review. I've done a sort of intro, and then we sent it to Chris from Battery Operated Orchestra, who may be watching live. I'm not sure. He turned it around really quick because he's got an OB6 and a mini Moog, which meant he's got things to compare it to, so that will be coming up soon. I've also shot a thing with the folks over at Pittsburgh Modular, sort of chatting to them about their new Tiger module, and what else? There is other thing. Oh yeah, Gaz's Synth East thing. I don't know if you saw that at the weekend. He posted a report. Do check that out as well. So I'm just getting the housekeeping stuff out of the way, but we could do some topics, I guess. Let's think. Well, let's start with something that's kind of a little bit abstract, but why not?
Hello, I'm Anders from Robotic Bean, and today I'm going to show you how to get started with Portatron. One good way to start is to check out the sound library that comes with Portatron. It has a lot of patches and samples that you can use to create your own tape loops. Browse.
The pace of this is a little more sedentary than we like normally on Sonic Talk, so I won't play the whole thing. But essentially, this is a Portatron tape emulator. I put this up here because Charles Chicky Reeves, he mentioned it, and he said, "Oh, this is actually really cool," and he uses it all the time. And I think it was probably, I don't know if it was Alessandro Cortini who started using 4-tracks and creating tape loops and pushing up kind of mixes. And this is kind of based on that principle, but obviously you can create tape loops within it. You can do stuff like deal with load different things, create different loop points, run effects, and it's a great textural thing. And like Chicky said, he's been using it endlessly. And I'm guessing maybe people who use something like the OP1 tape machine will kind of immediately gravitate towards this. I don't know if either of you folks have actually come across this or what you think. I mean, it's very meta, isn't it? We're going back, software emulation of something that was actually quite restrictive back in the day. now being used again. I'll come to you, DI, because I mean you've done tape emulation stuff, and this will do kind of normal or chrome or different noise types and frequency responses and drive and all the tape saturation and whatnot.
Yeah, I think the main thing here, I did come across this a while ago, and like a couple of months ago, I think, and I think that the main interest here is the library, because it's kind of lo-fi, and whatever you throw in, it kind of works together, because it's it's unassuming and it's noisy and crackly. And if you're into that type of thing, I think it's really fun. So I really like the interface. I like it's kind of between a Tascam look and the Yamaha look. So the rack underneath reminds me of old Yamaha.
I'm Anders from
reverbs and things like that. And the thing looks kind of Tascam in a way. By the way, I just not too long ago I saw a Fostex X15 4-track on eBay in good condition, and I had to buy it. That's the first one I had, and I haven't. I thought I would. I'll run stuff through it and all that, because there's something about the sound, the unbalanced sound of those RCA phono jacks, that you run stuff through it and everything sounds huge. And I never got to do that because I'm too busy, but it's on my list. Maybe I should set it just here on an auxiliary and just run through it. Stuff through it. But yeah, I like this concept. I think the main thing here is the library, because the library kind of fits the concept and the whole thing. It's very lo-fi. It's very colorful. I think that if you start throwing in your own WAV files and stuff, then it's probably easier to do it in your DAW. You have more functionality and more features and stuff like that. But for what it is, as a kind of playback machine that does what it does, I think it's great. How much is it? Maybe I'll get it.
It's about 133 UK, which is not. I mean, it's not an insignificant amount of money. It's quite a
cheap.
chunk. No, it's not cheap. I mean, I don't know what the justification for that is, but I guess something, maybe there's a whole lot. You can add dropouts and wobble and chrome. I mean, maybe there's an awful lot of modeling gone in.
Yeah, but you have so many plugins that kind of do like lo-fi stuff. So it's not about that. I think that from what I've heard, the samples that it comes with are quite eclectic and fun, and not something that you would normally come across easily. I'm sure you can look it up on Splice and on Loopmasters and all that and get to the same kind of crunchy stuff, but it's there already. And if you're into that type of thing, which I am occasionally, then I think it's a nice tool. To have.
I was wondering, Ty, what you could do is just get a bunch of them across different tracks and record multi-track into the put. So if you're recording whatever, I don't know, let's say an orchestra, and you just put them all into individual tracks on the 4-track, and you've just basically 4-track recorded, or a drum kit. It might be an interesting way of tape emulating, but that's probably going too far. I don't think that's what this is designed for, to be honest. But it's
not what it's designed for. I mean, to be fair, so I've had this since about Christmas, and so I've used it a lot. On the last project that I did, I used it quite a lot. And the library is exactly as Yoad said. The library is nice, but the library is literally kind of like 20% of what it can actually do, because you don't just use it it's not just meant to be a 4-track emulator. You're not meant to just use it for the lo-fi effects. The lo-fi effects are all there, obviously, but it's more to do with the fact that you can use it like a kind of monophonic mellotron. But the way that it does it, do you remember that fad a couple of years ago, 2-3 years ago, where people were taking like Walkmans, and then you could basically, with CV and Gate, you were basically being able to play tunes on Walkmans and all that kind of thing.
Oh yeah.
It takes that concept. So you basically put a sample into it, and it becomes a kind of monophonic mellotron tape, but done with cassette. The sounds you get out of it are unlike kind of anything else, really. They don't even sound like a mellotron, because obviously the when it does the legatos between notes, it's actually doing it with pitch change on the, kind of on the reels. That's what it sounds like. Very clever. And then it's almost like, and then you can also use it as a drone machine. So basically you lay in your own samples using all the kind of the cassette artifacts, and you then can play it like, I mean, I've got a 4-track cassette and I've got an 8-track cassette that basically, I think I've said before, I just use it as kind of chord machines. Basically, you come up with atmospheres and just fader playing. You can do that on it, but you can also use it as a drone machine. So you put different drones into different elements and with different loop points and set certain sections that can then play backwards. It is very kind of OP1 in terms of. Yeah, it's that kind of OP1. It feels very OP1-esque, but it's even more lo-fi. And although the library is great and there's some great sounds out of it, when you dump your own stuff into it, it becomes it's a really creative machine. It's not just for playing library stuff back on it. You can use it as a proper instrument, and I really, really rate it. It's actually funny because Chicky and I, we only spoke the other day, but we didn't speak about this, which I wish I'd known. But it's a really, really, really great instrument. So yeah, highly rated. That sounds great. I'm glad to hear that. That sounds like I might have to check that out. But I should also point out right now, I'm just seeing in the chat room everybody's going, oh yeah, this is going to be a great week. There's all the new Behringer synths. Well, I say new, that another bunch of Behringer announcements, and Cherry Audio just announced the JP6, which actually came out a bit late for the topics, and we're not talking about the Behringer synths. So if you're only here for those, I'm sorry, you're not going to get that. So I'm just going to get that straight out there. No doubt that will probably annoy some of the people who are expecting to hear. That's
Ty, I'm sure you don't get to talk about Behringer today. Well, you could talk about Behringer. No. I'm sorry. Well, if you want to go, it's fine. But anyway, I thought I'd throw that out there, because rather than have people hang around for hours going, and then rant in the comments, there are people who do that sort of thing, apparently, online. Not I say. Okay, at that sort of rather crass interjection, I may as well interject with yet another crass interjection, which will be our friends over at Baby Audio. Baby Audio makes creative effects plugins designed to add colour and depth to your mixes. They won Plugin of the Year 2021 in Future Music and Computer Music Magazine, and were nominated for the SOS Awards 2 years in a row. Why not check out Smooth Operator, a resonance suppression, equalisation and compression plugin that automatically eliminates resonances and muddiness, allows you to shape your track's tonal response while the plugin automatically eliminates resonances in the background. Get 15% off when checking out with the code ST15. And we thank Baby Audio for their continued support. Much appreciated in these rather skinny times that there are about the place commercially. But yes, thanks very much to that. Okay, let's see what we got next. I'm going to go back a couple of steps. Gosh, this is, I think, one of the... Let's go here, because I think this is kind of an interesting one. This is just news. This is, well, I'll play it, and then you can decide for yourselves. Okay. Oh, it's a web one. There's no video. This is actually. Oh no, it's not. I beg your pardon. I've completely messed this up. So I'm going to play this now. So it's this one, isn't it? This is. Sorry, I do beg your pardon. This is the Digitakt and Loopcloud kind of integration, which seems like a really simple thing, and I suppose it is in many ways, but it allows you to essentially integrate Loopcloud into your Digitakt. I think it's been integrated as a connected device, so you could just drag samples into it, which seems like a no-brainer, and you think, why hasn't this been done a million times before? Because if you've got a sampler, you want to be able to drag all your stuff into it. It makes perfect sense. I mean, insert sample provider of your choice. I mean, Loopcloud obviously have got a ton of stuff, but this seems to be the one, and Digitakt very much seems to be the sampler of the moment. Lots of people, I mean, Digitakt is one of those samplers that, every time the reverb music and the sort of sales list comes out, it's one of the top selling sample playback and sort of drum machine type devices. So the idea of being able to integrate this seems like a really interesting sense, and in a way it does tie in with this the notion we were talking about the other topic I accidentally pushed up, which was AI, because obviously I think Loopcloud, as many other sample integrators now use, I think AI is wrong. Algorithmically searching large data sets to find similar and related samples. I think that's the thing. Yoad, I know you're a big fan of this. I mean, I know, I can't remember the ones that you've mentioned before, but you have things which allow you to sort of, if you've got a kick drum, it finds things with the similar sort of tonal characteristics, or in the
Waves,
Cosmos. That's it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yes. It's really interesting, but if I'm not mistaken, one of the MPCs, the Akai MPCs, does that with Splice. Am I wrong?
I think
and has been
right,
doing it
actually,
for years. So I think that conceptually, I don't think it's new, but I'm sure that the way it integrates is it looks, it seems, and the fact that it's been released now makes it interesting. I wonder whether they use, because Loopmasters have all the Loopcloud plugins, which allow you to play stuff in time in your session. So I'm sure there's something like that, which is very cool, because at the end of the day, that's what you want. You have a song or a track or whatever you're working on, and you want the samples to be browsed already in sync and key, and then when you drag it, you want them to kind of seamlessly work. It's funny, I was thinking about that, because I usually work with Splice, and I'm not saying Splice is better than Loopcloud, but it's just funny with those subscription kind of things that you subscribe to one thing and then you kind of stuck with it, because that's sometimes just because that's the first thing that you subscribe to, and Splice was there first, kind of. In that, I mean, there was Samplephonics Noise, which was really the first one that, and they had an instrument, so they were kind of ahead of the game. But Splice really took over, and Loopmasters. I think that Loopcloud, they have nice plugins that allow you to integrate the content, the kind of cloud content with your session.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that you're right about the MPC, but I think the integration is, I don't know how the Splice thing works. I mean, they've probably got similar things. I mean, this is part of the OS 1.5 update, which we mentioned briefly last week. And I think we would expect to see a lot more of this kind of thing. Though I'm trying to think, you'd have to have something of the market kind of size as Digitakt or as MPC, because those are the sort of things that people are going to be using, the hardware that people are going to be using. I don't know how it works exactly with the MPC and what's the other one? I can't even remember what the other one is. The one, and the one that's linked to Force. That's what I'm trying to think. Gosh, you could drag it direct to the plus drive or to RAM. It's direct integrate. I thought initially it was via Overbridge, but it's not. It actually shows up within. There's probably a new version of Loopcloud which will recognise a Digitakt being connected to it. So it's literally just like, where do you want me to put this? Oh, okay, it's part of the browser, and you can pull things in and out, I'm guessing, which obviously that sort of seamless stuff, certainly for building and writing, I mean, it sort of keeps the friction down, I suppose, which is, I'm all for that. I don't know. I mean, Ty, when you're composing, I guess you work to templates quite a lot, but sometimes you just like, I need to find something that I need, stuff like Loopcloud or Splice or insert service of your choice. No. Do you do that, or do you no, you don't use that kind of stuff? Right.
No, the only reason is that I'm very old school when it comes to this, and I could quite happily sit here and get on my little ranty chair and but okay, there's two sides to this. First of all, the tech side of things, the fact that you've got a machine that essentially you can, as you say, just kind of plug it in, and Loopcloud recognizes it being there and basically integrates it all seamlessly, so it appears. That side of things is fantastic. And if we're talking about getting samples of, individual hits, or, that's great. That's absolutely brilliant. That's absolutely fantastic. my problem with this as a concept, which just goes across the board when it comes to, we're going to use the word loops here, is that I just have an issue with it. End of story, period. You know, I always have done. I think I always will do, and it is really old school. And anyone can turn around and put me down saying, you know, I'm so behind the times. I'm not with it, and that's fine. But you've got to understand, from my point of view, what do? I write music. I'm a composer, so I write music. I don't just take what someone else has done and just claim it's my own. And whether it be a loop, whether it be a drum beat, whether it be a guitar, you know, whether it be whatever, if I want that, I write it or I make it happen. And that's just the way my head works. It's just the way I work. You've got to understand. So I get people approaching me, you know, a lot, sending me material, going, you know, kind of, what do you think of this, or can you comment on this, or, you know, and honestly, the amount of times where I just sit there and you listen to it and just think, oh Christ, it's that loop again. It's that GarageBand loop again. It's that Logic loop again. It's the same one, and it's the same. And I've also, you know, I've got friends, colleagues who are really high up in the TV and film world, and, you know, obviously I can't say who, but, you know, they sent me something to work on, and it was full of GarageBand loops, and it's just like, I mean, Christ. You're a composer. You're being paid to write music, not to just download something and, you know, link it together every 4 bars and call it your own, because it's not your own. You didn't write it. All you've done is download it. And all I'm trying to say is that's just my mentality. So something like this, it's just what it's really encouraging people really to do is just download what other people have done and just knock it off as their own. You know,
I think perhaps, I mean, I think Digitakt does have limited memory, but I mean, what I'm assuming that I would probably personally use it for would be, okay, I want the Digitakt to have like a 909 kit in there, or insert the name of some obscure.
That's fine, because then
that sort of stuff.
Because because at that stage you have to write with it, or they are single sounds or single notes or single, you know, even a riff, if just a single riff, that it's something that's short, and you have to make it musically work, and you have to design it. Whereas the problem I have is, you know, kind of, I know so many people who just have loops, musical phrases that they've had no input other than downloading it and putting their name to it.
Okay, here's. I mean, we're going to go off piste a little bit here, but philosophically, do you think the nature of the way that media composition specifically worked and has become much more time pressured, so there's less people, you know, you end up with less time, or, you know, some people are prepared to stay up for 60 hours on the trot to write that cue. They might reach for these things. So this is a symptom perhaps of the time is money, I suppose.
No, completely, absolutely. And if they do, that's fine. I'm not going to. Yeah, I'm not going to judge them too badly about it, because, you know, if you only have 2 hours to write a cue and you have no choice, then you have to do whatever works for you. But, you know, kind of, I mean, you know, I've used every now and again I've used a loop in exactly those circumstances, and literally felt absolutely dirty about it. I really have felt seriously. I mean, like, seriously, it's like almost when I'm sending it off, apologizing about it, just because it's just not right. But it's only because of those absolute pressures that I've had to do it. But even then, the idea of just taking whole phrase, you know, a complete piece or a complete set of loops, doing the whole thing in loops in Ableton or something, it would never happen. I'm talking about one small loop within context of everything else, and it doesn't sit well with me.
It's your thing. I mean,
it's just me.
You must come across this sort of thing all the time. You get production work in, and at the heart of it might be, you know, a part of a breakbeat or a sample, which gives it a stylistic kind of beginning, I guess, at the very least.
Yeah, I think that there's 2 aspects here. One is that, you know, there's an argument that says that if you kind of borrow a chord progression, or even use a chord progression that you heard somewhere, or that reminds you of something, then why would a chord progression be different than a sample? It's only technology that kind of differentiates.
No, because A chord progression means you actually have to do something with the chord progression. If you turn around and want to use a chord progression that other people have used, I don't really, if you're going to do that, that's fine. But you then have to take that and arrange that and actually use your own thought process to go, what's going to be the bass, what's going to be the, what's going to be the midline, what sounds am I going to use? You have to think about it. What I'm on about is taking a loop, a music or loop, or just a beat, which you've had no input. You would literally downloaded it, and that's it.
I understand, but I think that this is kind of relative, because when you say you have to actually do it, it means that you take two fingers and you find a bass sound that someone sampled, or a piano sound that someone sampled, and you do that, and then you edit the MIDI just because technology allows us to do it, whereas the original way of doing it would be to write the score and imagine the sound of the orchestra in your head. So technology allows us to simplify the way we produce things. And so if we hear a chord progression and we borrow it from a song and we arrange it, what is arrangement? We take samples that are ready-made or presets that someone else made, and we use technology in a very simplified way to make it happen. And the next step is to take an actual recording, or when you say you take 909 samples, and that's fine, but someone actually made those as well. So that's one argument. The other thing is that I think that art in general is mainly about choice. So if you splash some paint on a canvas and you say, this is my expression of this is the expression of my feelings or whatever, and you call that your piece, then I don't think it matters how much work was put into it, because you're committing. It's all about commitment and choice. And I think the same thing applies to music as well, because everyone has access to Splice and all these this immense abundance of content. But it's those people who have the talent. It's the same with AI and ChatGPT. What you do with it, it's how you approach it and how you make it your own. I think that technology, we're just in a point in time that technology is here. But if you look at yesteryears, then you say, oh, that's fine, because it's not, it's relative, because tomorrow someone will say, wow, they use Splice, that's classic. Because the next thing will be that you will say, oh, I want to create a pop track, and you'll have it ready. And then people who used to use Splice, people will say, oh, that's really cool, because they actually had to do something. So I think that it's relative. It's not kind of...
You're right, though. You're right. But you're right. That's the level we're at. They actually had to do something. But the level we're at the moment is they actually had to choose which sample to download. That's the level we're at.
Well, I feel I've opened a can of worms here. Can we just one thing I will say? I mean, obviously, there's a difference between people who are doing this to express themselves through art and maybe or for financial gain for their job is one thing, and then you've got people who just want to kind of make a beat that their mates can dance to. Whatever. There's a different thing, and as a child of the '90s who basically grew up sampling the Funky Drummer and making remixes based out of breakbeats and loops, I hold my hand up and go, yes, I do feel a little bit uncomfortable with that now, and I would want to make something a bit more. But at the time, it felt very now and very much what everybody was doing, which was the zeitgeist. So you're right about the relativity. Maybe we should move on, because I think this could probably go on. This could run and run and run, and I think we both have extremely valid points on that. So let's agree to let's close that can of worms for now, shall we? Just because we probably should. And while I can take this puncture, I'll put a little bit amuse bouche, a palate cleanser in between. With a message from our friends over at iZotope. OZone 10 is the future of mastering. The new version includes Master Assistant, match your master to any reference file or files. Also, the Stabilizer module in Advanced adds clarity with intelligent and adaptive mastering EQ. Also included is the Impact module in Advanced, which enhances the rhythm by controlling microdynamics. Don't forget the code SONIC10 at iZotope.com/SonicTalk to save an additional 10% off any software purchase, not including subscriptions. Right. Okay. Let's reset a little bit and see where we're going next. I mean, what we'll do is we'll bring up this is a new library actually, which is something that you mentioned, Ty, and it kind of guess in a way follows on to a degree, because it's from Kontakt. It's from a company called Void and Vista. So let me just. I'm assuming this is going to work because all my buttons seem to be completely wrong. So maybe what I'll do is I'll do it this way. No, that's wrong. God damn it. Where is it? Where's it blooming got? There we go. There you go. You're even quoted on this, Ty. I know full disclosure, you mentioned this to me and said we should talk about it because you were very excited about it. This is Strands by Void and Vista. It's on offer at the moment, 99 from 129, and it's Kontakt player, MKS. Has 32 sound sources, morph layers, custom UI, really interesting UI actually that's also scripted in the Kontakt player, 2.5 gigs of samples, and I know something called Max Cooper and it's definitely not there. Rival consoles I've heard of, but it seems to be everybody seems to be very excited about it. So I'm gonna give you the floor, Ty, because I know first of all, I interviewed one of the guys behind it, who used to play drums for Howard Jones, and he was the drummer. And I think I did a short piece with him when I did a stage tour when they played in Bristol. And obviously, this is something else that he does. And you were saying that you thought it was marvelous. So,
the reason is, again, total openness on this is that. So I've known Jonathan, who's as you say, Howard's drummer, for a number of years, and really lovely guy. And I hadn't spoken to him for years, and he basically just said, "Oh, we're working on this thing." I hadn't heard from him, and he just said, "We're working on this thing. Would you be interested in just looking at it?" And just like all of us, really, we all get this quite a lot with people and approaching us to look at stuff. And a lot of the time, it's okay. Some of the times, it's great. But a lot of the time it's just okay. And if it's okay, you go back and say, yes, it's really good. That's fine. And then you just drop it. And Jonathan sent me this, and literally every single patch that I was loading, it just kicked off, which we all know whenever you get a new synth, a new library, a new anything, if you just sit there and every time you just go through a patch, or it just triggers ideas, or you just start coming up with new pieces, that's the sign of a good library. And this is it's really beautiful and also quite unique, because the thing is, in this day and age now, coming up with a library that's different is difficult, because we all know it's all been covered. It's all been done before. Now it's getting to that stage, and this is really quite unique. So everything is kind of bowed, but it's acoustic bowing, e-bowing, electronically kind of bowed, lots of sound design, lots of manipulation in the audio, and it goes really deep. The controls you see on the panel, because it's a beautiful front panel, the UI is beautiful, but it looks like there's only a handful of controls, but they're literally just like kind of stepping stone, and you can go really deep into it, and it's just gorgeous. I mean, it's one of the most inspirational libraries I've had in a long time. It's just, and it's not just cinematic.
Is it a lot of it sort of guitar based, or is it just kind of all sorts of?
No, it doesn't sound guitar based at all. Some of it is. Some of there's e-bowed guitar, and there's bowed acoustic guitar. There's stuff that sounds like low winds, but that's bowed something. I mean, I don't know what it is. Everything has a bowed element to it, but you can also, because you can then start moving the start points and end points. You don't have to have it as a bowed. You can actually cut into the samples and then give it its own envelope. But it's a lot of it's very, very sound designy. It doesn't all just sound like strings and or guitars. There's a lot of, the main thing is there's a lot of movement going on in the sound, and because you have multiple layers, it means that you can morph between the layers as well. And you have, you know, some of the sound sources are so completely different when you start morphing between them. You know, kind of you find that middle ground of that sound that's just really special. But the main thing is a lot of the sounds are incredibly, they're just incredibly organic, and some of them are really dirty, and it's, yeah. Every time I play, and I've basically, there are loads of patches, or you can put your own stuff in to use the engine. But every time I've gone through, it's just triggered tracks with almost every patch I've played on, which is,
that's always a good sign. That's a good sign, isn't it? I mean, it's not often you get to do that. I mean, it's interesting. It kind of because the whole Kontakt engine side of things is, you know, there. As we know, a lot of Native Instruments stuff, there's something about the engine that does generally sound good. A lot of the sounds that come out of Native Instruments just sound very production ready, you know, as opposed to maybe other libraries. And I don't know, whoever, they obviously have a very high bar that they must set. So that's a good sign. I don't know. Do you have you come across this before, Yoad?
Only today. It looks stunning. I really like the interface. I really like the GUI. I think it's very modern. It's very slick. It's very kind of 2D, which leaves room for imagination. I'm really impressed with, you know, the Kontakt engine. I wouldn't say it's limited because there's loads of stuff you can do, but the in terms of the processing, you have the SSL EQ, you have some filters, you have reverbs and built-in stuff. You can load in your own IRs and things like that. But essentially, it's kind of finite, and I really like libraries who kind of stretch the envelope and make it into something with depth and a lot of possibilities, and this one seems to be one of those. I'm very intrigued. I'm probably gonna get it because not necessarily because I'm going to use it in my productions, because I make libraries myself, and it's something, it reminds me a bit of the ambient sci-fi library I made for Nexus, I have to say, from what I've heard. But it's really interesting to see what other people do. And like I said, I like seeing Kontakt libraries where it doesn't sound and looks like another Kontakt kind of thing. With regards to them having their own sound, I'm not sure whether it's not a Native Instrument release. So they have a platform where you can make the libraries, and there's kind of a licensing mechanism and things like that. I'm not sure whether they have kind of curation or control or A&R or that sort of thing to give it that distinct sound. But again, the tools are what the Kontakt platform provides. So that will kind of dictate how it would sound eventually. But this seems like a very creative library, and it's very interesting.
The main thing about it is that, I was going to say, the main thing about it is the actual raw samples, the original content. That's where the real magic is, if I'm honest. The raw samples, the way they've been recorded, are just so organic. They're just so human. They're just, do you know what I mean? They're not trying to sound perfect. They're meant to sound. It's hard to explain. It really is very hard to explain. I mean, is it 99 quid? I think it's 99 quid at the moment. I know
it's reduced at the moment. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Honestly, in terms of, you know, for 100 quid, if you're into things, yeah, ambient and dirt and cinematic and all of that kind of thing, at the moment, I'd honestly say I don't think there's a better way of spending 100 quid. There really isn't, because it's just because that raw content. are the sounds that you don't want to start throwing the big Hollywood names in, but it is that kind of the big Hollywood, the big names like Zimmer, who have their own specialist teams that will, for each project, will start doing huge amounts of sampling of very unusual instruments. It's that in a box. It's amazing. It is a really beautiful library. So.
Should also give a shout out for Diego Stocco, who is a sometimes guest on the show. His Twisted Trees, I think it's out yesterday or today, which is a Sonic Extra or a Sonic expansion for Omnisphere. There's a hilarious. I mean, I'm not sure if it's intentionally meant to be hilarious, but it's him sort of leaping around in the woods, sort of playing trees with bows and hitting stuff. It's quite an amusing thing. But some of the sounds are amazing inside the Spectrasonics engine. So I think there's sort of seem to be times when you just get, these big libraries sort of show up and you start to hear the fruits of the labour. I mean, it sounds like these guys are also kind of maestros as well. But I would class Diego as a Sonic maestro too. But worth checking out.
I just purchased it right now.
Oh, did you?
I just couldn't resist it. Yeah.
What, the Sonic Twisted Trees or the?
No, the.
Okay. Live on air.
Live on air.
You won't be disappointed. You absolutely won't be disappointed. Yeah. Sorry,
glad to hear it.
Sorry, Yoad.
No,
I'm glad
you
to
know
hear
that
it.
we all enjoy. That's what we're in for, right? Like you said, it's about getting a new thing and playing and getting new ideas and getting inspired.
Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's kind of often the way. Well, we could get onto a few user questions because we do have a little bit of stuff going on here. So let's go here. I'm not sure. There was one that I wanted to. Where did it go? We did have one polysynth. I think that's been done quite recently. Let's go to. Here we go. This is an interesting one. So. This is from Greg Stitt via YouTube. This was actually from a few weeks back, but it said, when you collaborate with others, do you have any go-to instruments? For example, my friend would always do the drums and I would always do the bass. And that's a curiosity because I noticed, actually, this is quite an interesting one because I noticed when Andrew Huang does his 100 tracks in a day, which is always an interesting yearly, it's more like 100 riffs in a day than maybe 100 songs in a day, but he always plays the guitar and the other guy always plays the drums, and so they stick to non-technically complex things that they could just immediately express. So I suppose that must be. I mean, Ty, we've seen you. You came down last time we saw you play live was our DBS thing when you were just wowing the audience with I've got this patch and I'll just play this. Oh, what do you mean? That's just me messing around. But you can keyboards. I'm assuming is where you'd reach. But is there a specific synth or a specific library that you would choose for an immediate? I mean, it would depend on the collaboration.
Absolutely. I mean, first of all, collaboration and me. I mean. Christ, they don't go well together.
Really?
It's no, not really. I haven't actually. I mean, I played in a band, Redbox, for a bit, and that was just straight keyboards. But even that was, kind of, I used to just get annoyed because people used to get in the way, so. Collaboration and I mean, when I did the Midge stuff, that was fine because he basically left my own devices and he just did the singing. But yeah, keyboards would be the, kind of, and right at this moment, if I was just, obviously it depends on the project because depending on, what they want and what I was inputting. But honestly, right at this moment, if I had to pick a synth to just stick under my arm and take to do something, if it wasn't going to be, kind of a stage which everyone would take, it'd be like a montage or something, just something that could cover all bases. Oh, an Oasis! I've got an Oasis. It'd be an Oasis. Yeah, there you go. It just covers all bases. Yeah. But
that makes sense. That's interesting.
Yeah. For me, it would always really be centered around a piano, a really good piano, and then whatever else. I mean, if I was left on a desert island and could only have one instrument, and I don't mean a synth-wise, it would just be a piano. That's it. Give me a piano and I'm happy.
Yeah, so, that's fair enough. What about you, Yoad? I mean, I know your first instrument is guitar, right? So you would presumably reach for something like that. I am making an assumption.
As you know, I'm a synth head as well. So yeah, it's whatever is handy. You know, the other day I grabbed the bass ukulele that I had. I needed the bass part, and although I have some really nice basses here, I just grabbed it for some reason, and the whole track kind of it worked. It's all about, yeah. It's like having plugins or libraries or synths or guitars. It's just about something that can trigger something else or make something else happen or contribute to something. And it's all about kind of trying to direct or to set the stage for happy accidents to happen. That's how I see it. And it doesn't really matter what's the vice, you know, that you use for that.
And
or
it's also about
matter.
I was going to say, and it's also about not being precious about things as well. Do you know what I mean? Exactly the same as Yoad. If it's there, just use it, and make whatever is there work. Because a lot of the time, it's the making it work. I mean, without going back to the whole thing I was on about loops and things, it's the fact that if you've got something that you have to make it work because it doesn't naturally sit into its slot, however that may be initially, you have to work at it, you have to invest time into it. 99% of the time you'll get better stuff out of it rather than it being simple. Does that make sense? It's like if it's simple, if it's really easy, you're missing something, you're losing something, and that's kind of my argument with the whole loops or just download stuff, because you do that and it's fine. Whereas and it fits, that's great. But what I would rather do is work at it and try and take something which isn't naturally meant to be doing what it should be doing, and then work at it to make it work, because you're investing time and creative. You're coming at things from a different angle. You know, it's like it'd be really easy to get a polysynth, and we've all done this. It'd be really easy to just get a polysynth to play some chords, but why not use a monosynth and run 3 or 4 tracks with slightly different sounds?
Well, I would argue, you know, a better choice would be to get a duophonic synth, because then that makes you think. And I love I love duophonic synth because you can imply all sorts of chords with only 2 notes, and I think that's
or a paraphonic synth. This is the other thing. People think for chords, you know, a paraphonic synth reacts in a completely different way to a polyphonic synth. And
I love that.
It's just, again, it comes at things from a slightly different angle. When you're talking about your bass ukulele, I'm sitting there going, yeah, that's great. That's a brilliant thing to be doing. You know, because you're just coming at slightly left field. And I think going back to the Strands library, that's what I love about the library. Everything is slightly left field. Everything has taken a lot of thought at coming at things from a slightly different angle. And I think that what gets me off, to be fair, just coming at things from a different angle. So
quickly talking about paraphonic synths. I have the Poly 800, the Korg Poly 800, which I just love. I think that as a synth, it's the fattest synth ever. It's very, very limited, and it's paraphonic. So, and that's great, because when you can hold the chord, and since it's only one, it has one filter envelope, which is triggered by the last note. So it's last note triggered. So you can hold the chord, or let's say you hold the chord and then you play the bass line, and the bass line kind of activates.
It gives you
the filter. Okay, it's a very, very unique kind of way of playing polyphonic synths, and no other. I don't know if there's any. I've not come across any kind of software instrument that does it. It will be very easy to do.
Yeah, I just
obviously,
it's a piece of cake.
Yeah,
you'd think to do that.
Yeah, love that. Yeah, it's all about the limitations that lead to creativity or to unexpected kind of results.
Yeah, well, there's a sort of a rather long form answer to that question, but I think, you know, I guess it depends. I think I would probably just take one of the dread boxes because was something that's got an effect, but something that just sounds really beefy. And I'd go monophonic because then I wouldn't be troubled by having to play chords and show my lack of musical ability and knowledge. So I could just kind of find the root and maybe sort of move stuff around personally. But and I've sort of done that stuff before. Okay, we got one more question. I think we've got time for that. Hopefully, this one is from Rocky67, and this and actually looking at it now, this is completely the wrong panel to ask because nobody I know on this panel gets rid of anything very often. But this is Rocky67. What's the last bit of equipment? What's the last bit of equipment you were delighted to sell? I'll go first, just because I can think about it. We bought this special. It was video. It was to do a you plug a camera into it, and it had modems, SIMS card slots, and you were supposed to be able to then stream the camera out to a show like this or whatever. Never really worked out that well, and I think we sold it. At least I set the sale up, and I think Andy sold it. So I'm delighted that we got some money back on the investment because it wasn't cheap. But in terms of actual hardware gear, really, I don't know. I mean, because I don't buy that many synths, and quite often synths leave the building just because they're in for review and then they go out again. So I'm not sure I can answer that with any great sense of humour or insight, I'm afraid. And I'm guessing that perhaps that we may find Ty's I don't sell anything. So, you don't sell. But so there must be, but there must be a why don't you sell anything? So what was it that you sold that made you then decide never to sell anything again? If at all.
I haven't sold anything this century, I don't think. Yeah. I don't think.
Wow.
I sold my MC Pro. I've sold my Euphonics MC Pro, but that's a kind of desk. That's not in terms of synths. No, I haven't sold anything this century, I don't think. Wow. So I generally can't remember the last time I can vaguely remember at some point I sold a Yamaha S80. that was in 1990 something.
Wow. Okay.
No. If I've sold anything to anyone that could remind me, but I don't think I have. No, I don't think I have.
Interesting. I suppose. No. Yoad may well be the same thing. I mean, you've got more limited space. I mean, because sometimes you have to sell something or remove something from your immediate collection to be able to fit something new in. That's not quite the same thing, I suppose.
Yeah, I only regret things that I've sold rather than. I also sold like a TG33 or something like that, but I did sell a TG77, which is a different story, which I regret. And I sold what's it called, the Roland. Like the Super JX, but the single version, JX8, I think.
Okay. JX8P
which I regret.
JX3P?
JX8P. I have the 3P. No, JX, whatever it is. And yeah, I consider myself a really shrewd eBay trader when it comes to guitars, but I'm really good at the purchasing aspect of it. So I'm kind of half a shrewd eBay trader. Yeah,
that's a great answer.
I do buy some. I did purchase some great guitars over the years, but. Yeah, selling is a different issue.
I think the reason I don't do it though is the fact that when I had to, in the years when I had to sell stuff, just like we've all had to, I kind of regretted so much stuff. Every time I'd sell something, I think, I won't miss it that much, and then 6 months later I'd regret it and then end up rebuying stuff. And so I think I did so many years of selling it and regretting it. And so that's kind of why, even I've said this so many times before, that even stuff that I really, really rarely use or I might only keep it for one sound or something. it's always because nothing else can quite get that one sound. And I do try to get things that, kind of, but it's, normally everything has a reason for not selling it.
I've got one. Okay, I can actually. I've got one. The last thing I remember selling. I'm sure I've sold other things in before. I sold my Roland JV 1080, which I remember I bought because I needed a sort of because my journey through kind of doing MIDI and kind of arrangements and mixes and stuff, it started with a D110, then I got an M1, then I got an O1W and a sampler, and then the next big kind of meat and potato, I call it a meat and potatoes machine, which gives you lots of polyphony and will play things like organs, strings, pianos, things that you need DSP or grunt to put out. Bread and butter sounds, yeah, and that's what I used the JV 1080 for that, and we used it a reasonable amount, but then I sold it, and I actually don't regret that at all. It's not something that I would feel like I really missed that, because again, it was at that time when those sounds were that when it first came out, they were harder to get, and by the time I wanted to sell it, it was that sort of sound wasn't really all that useful. So I suppose, and now that doesn't matter. There's probably a cloud emulation for it, I'd imagine, but not that I'd want that necessarily. So that JV 1080 was my last one that I remember selling. Did I sell anything else? No, I can't recall. No. Anyway, well, thanks for the question.
What we like,
yeah, not a terribly fertile ground for that. But hey, what can I say? But thank you very much for the question. Of course, remember, anytime you want to leave a question for the panel, now we've got it all working again. Just type it in QQ. When I set up the next show, it will be already there. You can leave comments before the show happens, so up to a week beforehand, and they will come into the database now that Wagyu has got it all working. And don't forget, we've got our live event on Saturday 11th of March. It'll be live on our YouTube channel probably for about 3 or 4 hours on Saturday night UK time, and there will be individual videos and there's extra content and stuff, so do check that out. But Ty, thank you so much for joining us. I'm glad we managed to get your audio and video working, and it stayed working. What's next for you then? Are you kind of are you gardening or what? Just chilling?
No, these hands have never. Lots of that. Yeah, actually, just lots of sorting, redoing the studio, finally getting the new studio, which now isn't new but was 2 years old, but finally getting that one sorted. So yeah, it's lots of just doing stuff. Yeah. So, but no deadlines, no stress. So all is good. That's nice to have time to do. It's nice. I mean, I know you were saying at the beginning it's kind of a bit of a drag, but actually it's quite nice to invest time into your workspace and your stuff. It's quite self-development, isn't it? You're right. The only problem is that honestly, it's so daunting. That's the problem. It's kind of, and I'm sure Yoad was here when he was doing his new place. That gets to a certain stage where it just is so daunting about what needs to be done that it's just you keep putting it off, and I've put it off long enough now, so all needs to get sorted. But there's look, we've just had the whole thing of we don't sell anything, so the amount of gear I've got is just ridiculous, and it all needs to be integrated in and plumbed in and racked up, and actually on that note, we've got a room over here. Because we get a lot of stuff through, a lot of deliveries, there's all sorts of things through, and you often get a box within a box. So literally, I've got about, I don't know, I'm probably a container ship's worth of cardboard that I need to just get rid of, and loads of stuff and crap that's lying around that, like old laptops from really long time ago and weird old audio interface. I really need to get, I think maybe what we should do is have some kind of like garage sale for Sonic. It's a bit weird though, because some of it is things that maybe we had for review 10 years ago and I didn't even realise we still had, because often it goes back, sometimes it doesn't, I'm fully upfront about that, and it's just like I'm not quite sure of what I'm supposed to do with that sort of thing. So, yes, I'll try and figure it out. Anyway, Yoad, what's next for you then? Are you going to alt-tab into a banging Atmos mix, or have you got something else going on?
I'm working on a few productions at the same time. I'm working, like I said, on the new Nexus library. I'm doing very big. We're doing a massive thing at Waves, which will be unveiled soon or revealed, and Yeah, a lot of things, but
Juggling.
I'm keeping kind of calm and relaxed about it because I've been, doing it for many years, and whether you're stressed
What's the
about
worst can
stuff or
happen? What's the
not,
worst that can happen?
Yeah.
Exactly.
yeah, and eventually things kind of work out, and so I'm trying to enjoy it rather than to be stressed about it, and I am. So it's all good.
That's good. I've been asked again to plug the Sonic EMOM, so I'm just going to put that in the chat room. If I do this and I press this button, then it should plug and put the whole links and stuff in. I think, Yoad, your USB audio interface has gone a bit weird. It's decided to your USB driver needs rewriting. I'm not quite sure what's doing it, but I'm getting that right bottom. Yeah, I think so. Maybe the thing to do is to say goodbye now. And thank you, everybody, for joining us. Thanks to everybody in the chat rooms. Do come and see us at EMOM if you're in the area. Do pop in as well. More than welcome to. We've still got tickets. So, so there's going to be a bunch of people. I think Mark Tinley's going to come down. We've got Calc. We've got Maths. We've got, a whole bunch of people. Hopefully next time. Right. See you all soon. That's Sonic Talk. Episode 749. That's the end. Cheers. See you later.